welcome to another episode of the podcast Profits Unleashed podcast, the show where we empower coaches and experts to use podcasting as a powerful tool to drive sales and grow their business. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, and today we have Robert Hunt, an executive coach and, if you can see that, the author, it doesn't want to show it, the author of Nobody Cares. He's an accountability guy. He is the accountability guy, and he's a business owner in the Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas area, and helps leaders remove the things that keep them from being their best. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
And so, first of all, would you like to share with the listeners a little bit about your backstory? What was the inspiration behind the book?
My beautiful wife, Kathy, and I, in 2019, were looking at our lives and taking an honest evaluation of where we were at that year. And at the beginning of the year, we realized that we're just not happy with the life we were living. And we spent January looking at all different parts of our lives and saying, hey, is this the way we want our life to be? And like most people, you get to a place where you're just trying to optimize a really crappy situation instead of actually trying to create the life you want. And so we decided in 2019, hey, if we can't fix this problem, and our number one problem was we owed $90,000 in debt, and it was killing us. It was really coming between us. We were angry at the world. We were angry at God for not bailing us out of our bad decisions. And we looked at everything with frustration, and we treated each other poorly because of that. So we decided in 2019, hey, if we can't get out of debt this year, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to sell our house and we're going to start over. And we really didn't want to do that. We liked our house. It was a huge house with a movie theater upstairs and everything we could ever want. It was beautiful. But we had problems and we needed to own that. And so all year long, we kept trying to figure out, hey, what can we do? How do we grow the business to this rapid level? How do we fix things? All these issues. And in September of that year, I got vertigo for 16 days. And it was weird. I'd never had vertigo in my life. And went to all the doctors, couldn't get rid of it. After about 10 days, I said, Kathy, we're screwed. Because if I have vertigo the rest of my life, we owe $90,000. How am I going to work? I mean, I couldn't even do anything. But thankfully, the Lord took it away after 16 days. And I looked at her, I said, this is it. I said, we got to sell the house. We got to sell the house. So we put it on the market, began the journey of selling the house. We sold the house by March of 2020, when the world was shutting down with COVID. We moved into this rental that we live in right now, and we started over. In April, we paid off all that money, and we were debt-free. And the freedom and the peace that we had at that moment was unbelievable. And we've forgotten what it was like to have peace in our lives because we had just gotten used to little bit by little bit losing more and more of that peace, and we became accustomed to it. And we didn't realize how miserable we were. But by contrast, it was huge. And that began us on this journey of looking at everything in our lives and go, okay, what else do we not like? And we started going to counseling, and I started losing weight. And we worked on relationships that were important to us. And everything was up for grabs to really look at it objectively and honestly and say, do you have the life you really want? And we were attacking it bit by bit. And that's the impetus for the book, that we thought, this is what we're going to write about. We're going to tell this story and let the world know that there is a way to understand when you're playing a victim in life and to change that and own it and have the life you really want.
Oh, I love that, because it's so easy for people when things are going wrong that I suppose it's an easier option initially to blame it on somebody else, but you can't change anybody else. You can only change yourself. So actually, it's incredibly empowering when you do finally accept your situation, accept where you're at, and only from there can you do anything about changing it. So
Right. We talk about that too, that when you take accountability for everything in your life, you gain the power to change everything in your life. Because anything in your life where you're a victim and I have a jerk boss and my spouse doesn't love me and my kids are horrible and all these things that we talk about, if it's not your thing, then you can't do anything about it. But if it is your thing, you have the power to do whatever you want to do. And it will be hard, but you own it and you can do it. And I think that's the beauty in accountability. It truly creates power to do everything you want to do in your life once you recognize the power's there.
Brilliant. So for the listeners, where do they start? What is your process to achieving this? How do you help people through this and gain accountability?
Yeah, the first thing is just to recognize where you are at. We put in the book these two satisfaction assessment wheels, or these little wheels with pie charts on them. And what we want you to do is honestly evaluate, where are you satisfied or not in your life? Because satisfaction creates energy. And the more satisfaction we have, the more energy we have to face life and all the challenges we have. But when we think our life is miserable, we're exhausted and you don't have any energy to bring to life. So you step back and honestly score this. And you can do this on our website also. If you don't have the book, you can go to nobodycaresbook.com and you can take the satisfaction assessment for free under our resource tab. And we want you to honestly say, if no one's looking, this is what I really believe about my life and my business. You score one for business and one for life. And when you honestly score those things and you look at where you're satisfied or not, then the question is, what am I going to do about it? What happens in most people's cases when they say they're not satisfied is they go through four different stages, like climbing a mountain. We relate this to climbing a mountain. When you become aware that this is your problem and your opportunity, then you'd say, what's the first thing you do? You blame the world, you blame your boss, you blame your kids, you blame the economy, you blame COVID. And if that doesn't work, then we make an excuse. We have an excuse for why we're not doing something. You ever work with these people that no matter what goes on, they have an excuse for why they didn't do something or why they were late or why this didn't happen? It's exhausting to work around those kind of people. And if blame and excuse don't work, and neither one of those do anything, blame just makes us mad, and excuse just takes away the will to do anything about it. Yeah, I can't do anything about it. If those things don't work, then you say, I can't. And when we say I can't, we really mean I won't. I can't sell my house and start over. Yeah, you can. It wasn't fun, but you can. I can't go to counseling. I can't talk to my spouse about how our relationship's not what I want it to be. Yeah, you can, because you'll talk to them when you're getting a divorce. And so you say I can't, but you really mean I won't. And the last one is sometimes we just wait and hope. I'll make minimum payments on my credit card. I'm getting by until you lose your job, and then minimum payments aren't even an option anymore. And we kick it down the line, just building up the anxiety and making things worse until it just finally falls apart. And there's some time in your life where the pain of where you are is worse than the pain of where you need to go, and you're willing to change. And that really hinges on this phrase, nobody cares until you do. That's why we call the book Nobody Cares Until You Do. Because you have to say it to yourself. Look, nobody cares if I'm fat, broke, unhappy in my marriage, angry at God. Nobody cares unless I care enough to do something about it. And the reality is that once you care enough to do something about it, you gain the power to start the journey towards fixing those things you're not satisfied with. And it's at that point that people actually will care because you're doing something about it and they want to cheer you on, encourage you, and help you. But you got to own it first.
Yeah, it is empower. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? But quite often we are the ones that overcomplicate everything.
Yeah.
So actually, it is
Yeah.
the simple things that always work the best. But anything that is easy to do is just as easy not to do.
Yeah.
So you've got to make the decision that you've got to want to change. Nobody can do it for you, and I love that. Nobody cares. Yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
Great.
There's a lot of head trash. There's a lot of head trash that goes on in our lives that lie to us. And those lies are very powerful. And I don't ignore them, but I don't want to let them win. And so one of the things that we encourage you to do in this process is to share with someone else what's your story. If you write down those satisfaction assessments where you're honestly at, and you show someone, look, this is my life and my business. This is where I'm at. Then they can go, wow, what are you going to do about it? But when you hide it, you keep it to yourself. Nobody knows what's going on in your world. Nobody really knows your frustrations, your fears, your worries, the pain that you have, because we don't talk about that. We put on Facebook how awesome our vacation was, but we don't talk about the fact we came home with $3,000 more in debt. We don't talk about the honesty of these things. So people can't help you. Real accountability requires vulnerability, where you're being
Mm,
honest with someone and say, look, I don't like my marriage anymore. Okay, I understand that. Now, what are you going to do about it? And the solution isn't walk away. The solution is let's talk. Let's get a counselor. Let's get some help. Let's get separated. Let's take some therapy. There's a million things you can do, but we just stay a victim until we get so pissed off that we just blow our gasket. And that's not healthy. So the best thing you can do for your mental health is to own your journey. Stop looking around like a victim and feeling so oppressed and so awful. When you own it, you have the power and the freedom to do whatever you want to do. It's going to be hard either way, but I would rather have a life that is hard, working towards a solution, than a life as a victim. Either one, it's hard, but one way I'm going
Yeah.
to get out of it and life's going to get better.
Yeah, the issue possibly is social media because I think so many people are they're fear they're fearful of being judged. They're fearful of, yeah, like you said, on social media, everyone's having this amazing life and they feel shame. I think that's such a strong emotion.
Yeah,
So if they're going through struggles, it is that feeling of shame. So they feel that they don't want to share. And actually, if you do share, people may come from the woodwork to actually help. But you're
yeah,
not, certainly not going to get any help if you don't ask for it. But again, I think
yeah,
we've been conditioned to not ask for help because it's a sign that we failed. And it's not. You
no.
don't know the opportunities that might come up if you do be honest with yourself and honest with your friends or honest with your family. Yeah. Well, why do you think what holds people stuck in their stuff? What do you think is that holds them back from actually doing this and taking accountability so that they can change things?
For Kathy and I, it was really about ego and wanting to look like we had it all together. There is a lot of peer pressure in the world. Peer pressure is great if it's peer pressuring you to do the right thing. When you have peer pressure as a kid and your buddies tell you to jump out of a tree, you can't resist it. You have to do it. But when you get older, there's a peer pressure to look a certain way, to have a certain lifestyle, certain status. And the reality is that most people are living beyond their means. The debt in this world is ridiculous. And most people are living paycheck to paycheck. But our ego won't allow us to live a simple life. And people will say, I can't afford that. But you can afford it. Let me tell you how I know you can. When you're out of a job and you have no money coming in, you cut everything and you start to live super, super cheap. You don't go out, you make your own food, all of these things that we couldn't do before. And we get by. And so if we could do it when we were out of a job, we could do it when we have a job. We just don't want to. So again, back to I can't versus I won't. We have this ego that we have to live a certain lifestyle, and then it puts this pressure on us to perform. And that's what Kathy and I were. We had to look like we had it all together. I work with business owners and CEOs here in the DFW area. I have to look like I had my life together. At least I thought. I had to look like I was a professional, successful, rich, wealthy person who had done so well. And I was living up to that standard, but I wasn't affording it. My business was up and down all the time, and in a few years, really down. But I always lived like it was skyrocketing, and I was living way beyond my means. And then, so I think it really is ego, and you're gonna get a wake up call one way or another. Either you do it proactively because you want the life you really want, or you'll get it because you had the rug pulled out from underneath you and you have to scramble to survive, and that's a much harder journey. I would rather drive my own journey at my pace, chasing what I want, than to have it ripped out of my hands through debt, bankruptcy, losing a job, something. And it's not just money, it's relationships. How long are you going to ignore a relationship that's suffering, where you need to have a really candid conversation and go, look, this is not what we signed up for. We were in love. We were having fun. What happened to us? And be honest and own it. Then you have the opportunity to change it.
I suppose in the world that we live in, money, like you say, so many people are they're living way beyond their means. And the trouble is, you don't really keep a track. When you had cash, when it was just cash, you have this amount, you can physically see it.
Yeah.
You know that's got to last X amount of time. Now it's just tap.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you do tap over there in the
Yeah.
US. It's
We
just
do.
so easy, and
Yeah.
you get what you've spent, and it's so easy to overspend. I feel for the youngsters. I feel for my own daughters. They're having to really, focus in on this because it's just too easy for them. I have my 20-year-old, she said to me the other day, she said she was late for work, so she jumped in a cab. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What a waste of money. What were you working for? Come on, darling. You've got to get up and get on a bus. There are things you can do. But because of these things, they weren't around when I was young. If you were late, you got to suck it up,
Yeah.
own it, right? You got to go
Yeah.
and go, oh, sorry, I overslept. Whereas now there's all these things that are at our fingertips, that are an app on the phone that it's so easy for them to go, oh, okay, I'll book a
Yeah.
cab, or okay, I'm hungry and I haven't prepared any food. Deliveroo, Just Eats, whatever it is, I'll bring it to them. And it's just so easy to overspend
Yep.
in this day and age. But
And
you
there's a ripple
know
effect
it's going to
attached
get
to
better.
the
It's going to get worse, right? It's going to get
there.
worse.
Yeah, there's a really weird ripple effect to not making healthy decisions. So you oversleep that day, and because you oversleep, because you stayed up late the night before watching Netflix for hours and hours, you stayed up late, so then you oversleep, and then you get up and you have to rush. And it's because you have to rush, you have to take a cab, so you have to pay money for that. So you're in a bad mood, you didn't have breakfast, you didn't get enough sleep, you're exhausted, and you show up to work in a hurry, already mad because you spent money that you didn't really have to get a cab. So then at work, you're in a bad mood. So you treat people poorly. You make bad decisions. The whole day sucks. You go home, I hate my job. And then because you're in a bad mood, you treat the kids at home poorly. This ripple effect of bad decisions, of us being lazy, is ridiculous. We don't step back objectively and look at this, really look at this and go, oh my gosh, I need to own going to bed at 9 o'clock. I'd like to stay up and watch 6 more episodes of Suits, but at the end of the day, I've got to go to bed because I have a job, and that's accountability. We often confuse the term responsibility with accountability. Responsible is doing something. Accountability is owning it. And so when you
Mm.
go to work, you showed up, even though you stayed up watching Netflix late and you showed up and you rush and you're in a horrible mood, but you're there and you think, look, I'm here. Okay, I'm responsible. But your boss didn't hire you to be responsible. She hired you to be accountable. And what
Mm.
we talk about ownership thinking a lot in our groups, trying to get our employees to understand why you should care about your company you work for, even though it's not your own. You should care like an owner. Because when you don't care, you do cruddy work. And when cruddy work gets out in the market, customers leave us and go somewhere else. And when customers leave us and go somewhere else, I got to cut back. And if I got to cut back, you're not going to have a job. It's just all this ripple effect of us not owning it. It just goes into every area of our life, from our health to our faith to our relationship with people, and it needs to stop. We need to realize that we own it and what life would look like if we're truly empowered to chase the life we really want through accountability.
Mm. And what else do you think? So, what else do you think is slowing people down in? And I get it, when they're in that state, they find it, or the perception is that there is no way out, but there's always a way out. So, what else do you think is one of the things that is holding people back?
You need a plan. Let's say you have this amazing wake up call, like my beautiful wife Kathy and I did. We realized we didn't have the life we wanted, and we weren't going to make excuses or blame. We weren't going to say we can't. We weren't going to wait to hope. We were going to own it. And at that point, then we thought, okay, now what do we do? And the idea of selling our house wasn't a great idea. Everybody would say, well, make a plan. Dave Ramsey's has his whole philosophy of getting out of debt, but it would take us 8 years to get out of debt. And that's assuming that everything goes up. I mean, what if things continue to go down? And so we made the decision so the first thing you have to do is step back and acknowledge reality. And the reality was we were $90,000 in debt, not climbing the house or the cars. And so what could we do? The reality was we owned a house and we had equity in that house. And so the market was doing it at a place where we could sell the house and pay off everything. So that was the reality. And the second thing is, after you acknowledge reality, is to embrace the suck. Salem, who co-authored this book with me, was in the Navy, and they had this term, embrace the suck. And it's the reality that it's going to suck, but you need to embrace it because we're going there. Whether you like it or not, it's going to suck, but we're going to get through it. But let's embrace it and let's own this and get it done. And so we embraced the suck. It was very humbling to have to tell our neighbors when they saw a for sale sign, hey, you're moving. Yeah, I didn't manage my money very well, and I need to start my life over. And they're like, whoa, honesty. What's that about? And
Wow.
awkward to have to tell our clients and our family members and all that stuff. So it sucked. And it sucked also to sell our furniture that we loved and we spent a lot of money on. We could only get pennies on the dollar because it would not fit in this little house that we were moving to. It wouldn't fit anywhere we were moving to. And so that sucked. And the process was hard, but we got it done. So you acknowledge reality, you embrace the suck, and then you find the solution. And it was amazing how the pieces of the puzzle came together so well. And God was opening doors for us as we found this house to rent that was not even on the market the day we went out to go look for it. it just popped up while we were in the car, and our real estate agent brought us over here. And it's beautiful. It's a wonderful neighborhood and nice people to live with. And then the house sold, and we had just enough money to pay off everything, and we had $500 cash left over. And it was amazing just how all the pieces worked so well. It was also amazing that my beautiful wife, Kathy, would support me in my endeavor to start over. She could have said, no way, I'm not doing that. There's no way. But we were unified around living our lives in a way that honored the Lord. And she supported this really drastic effort. And even my son, who was, I think, 18 at the time, he's, as long as I can stay near my girlfriend's house, I think I'm okay wherever we move. So it went pretty well, the whole journey. All right, acknowledge reality. Sorry.
It works when you, again, it's because you made that decision. And it's funny how the pieces, like you say, the pieces, sort of everything will just come together.
Yeah. It was not easy. It was hard. It was hard to find someone to buy the house. We had to move our stuff. We had to get rid of some things so the house looked bigger when they showed it. We had to live with people randomly showing up at our house. All that stuff is selling your house. It was hard. And I'm running a business at the same time. And there's a lot of things going on. So we acknowledged reality. We embraced the suck. We found a solution, and then we made it happen. And it was hard, but we were thankful when we had paid off all the debt and were able to start over. And I think that whole journey is replicated over and over again in our lives when we look at some other area. Our marriage. Don't make excuses. Don't blame. Don't say you can't. Don't wait and hope. What's the solution? We're going to go to counseling. We're going to sit and talk with some other human. We still had really bad spending habits. So we hired a financial consultant who we paid $250 a pop to come in and tell us how to not spend our money. And he would look at our money and go, wow, geez, is this how you spend your money? And we're like, yeah, that's how we spend it. He goes, do you want to spend it like that? No, not really. And he walked us through the awkwardness of learning good perspectives on our money. And all of our money belongs to the Lord. He's just kind enough to let us use it. And I think we wasted it in such an embarrassing way that we would never want someone to look at our checkbook or our credit card statements, how much money we wasted on stuff. And if you really are honest, if you really want to let people know what your life is, let them look at your calendar and let them look at your credit card statements. That'll tell a lot about a person. So you have to make solutions that are really going to change your life and not put a Band-Aid on it, not kick it down the road. But that whole process is why we wrote the book, Nobody Cares. It's a step-by-step guide to being aware of where you play a victim, moving past the lies that hold us back as a victim, creating plans to find solutions, and change it as you pursue the life you really want.
How do the listeners get hold of this book?
The easy way is to go to nobodycaresbook.com. That's our website. You can always buy it on Amazon or Target or wherever, Barnes and Noble. For your particular website, or for your podcast, I created a domain called nobodycarespod.com. Nobodycarespod.com. Anyone who's listening to this podcast right now, if you'll go to that website and fill out the contact form with the code word Profits Unleashed in the comment section with your address, I will mail you a copy of the book for free. For the first two people who fill that out, I don't want 1,000 people filling it out, so I only limited it to 2.
Just but for 2.
Wherever it's at, I mailed the book to Kenya the other day. So wherever you're at in the world, I will mail you a copy of our book for free. If you will read it and let it change your life, I would be honored to give you that book.
Brilliant. Robert, thank you very much for your time. I applaud your bravery in doing this, and I bet it is so liberating and freeing. I can relate. I gave up my flat last October to be a digital nomad, and it was difficult to a lot of my stuff I just almost threw away, really gave away. And you'd think, oh, should I put it into storage? No, you don't need it. Come on,
for storage.
3 years. Yeah, what's the point? No, start again. I've told my daughters that for the next 3 years, as long as I'm not made a grandmother, but for the next 3 years, I want to travel. And yeah, I don't want to, what's the point? I can work from anywhere in the world. And then when I do finally come back and settle, then I can start again. And it was incredibly freeing. Just, oh my goodness, all this stuff that we collect that did I need? Do I need that? No, I don't. No, I don't.
Way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Live the life you really want.
Exactly. Life's so short. I'm 52. I'm an empty nester. They've always known that I don't want to do another winter in England. So they're well aware of that.
Come to Dallas. Yes. Come visit us in Dallas.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Be careful. Will you be careful? Might take you up on it. Thank you for your time today. And to the listeners, I will be back next week with another episode of the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. If you're a coach, consultant, therapist, or healer who would like to drive sales whilst having fun podcasting, head over to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free and find out how you can turn your podcast into a sales machine. We'll see you on the next episode.